We're making lots of progress on the CJ Scrambler. Let me get you guys updated as to what we've done. We have mocked up the full high steer setup. So there you can see the short arm and the long arm. And then we have we're gonna run these are all 1 ton tie rods. We will upgrade that pitman arm so that it's a little bit bigger, because by the time you machine and put the correct taper for that tie rod end, there's not very much material left on the stock pitman arm. So for now, we just kind of have everything mocked up. We also have the more steering box brace mounted in there with the correct hardware. And then over here, you can see our 2 access holes there and there so that we can get access to the retaining nuts for that steering box brace. The other thing that we have started with is the firewall modifications for the air conditioning unit. And for the AC unit, we went with Old Air products. They are kind of one of the few that actually make a kit specifically for a CJ. We did not order their kit per se for the CJ Jeep. We ordered kind of a hybrid. Basically, we ordered a kit, a condenser kit that will work with the grill, but then we upgraded the interior air handler and evaporator unit with one of their hurricane systems so that it has electronic controls, defrost, and is not an add-on to your existing AC unit. So inside here, you can see we designed in CAD and then cut out on the CNC plasma a new firewall plate. That goes right there, that locates this big hole so that these line sets can go through. And then we welded on a couple of spacers and standoffs so that this will space off a little bit, which gives us the proper clearance for the battery box hold down. So this hole here is AC. This hole here with the captive nut is battery tray. That is AC, battery tray. And then right directly under the battery tray, you can see where the line set will come out. And then it is sealed up with the provided grommet. So this stuff is turning out to be pretty clean installation. So if you can kind of visualize, we'll have line set come out here, which will be both heater as well as AC. And then we were able to retain the factory truck style AC compressor mounted in the low configuration. All we had to do was cut off and remove a axle bump stop right there. So nice clean install on the truck AC compressor. That way all of this bracketry stays completely stock to the truck donor vehicle, and we might be able to run the existing air intake tube, although we won't know that until we get our inner fender and our tube fender, which leads us to what we're gonna do next, which is mock up the new tube fenders that we got from GenRight. So GenRight sent us a set of their 4-inch tube fenders in aluminum, which is just gonna really make this Jeep look really, really tough and give us all kinds of clearance. But in order to install those, we have to cut extensively the inner fender well out, and then those get reused. So that's gonna be our next step, since we have the AC unit installed, we have our steering, we have our AC compressor, we have our serpentine belt drive stuff figured out, we have our steering figured out. The next step is going to be get those tube fenders installed with our inner fenders so that we can figure out shock mounts and the rest of the suspension. So let's get to installing those tube fenders.
So for the tube fenders, we just followed the GenRight instructions, trimmed that inner fender well, and then riveted it to the actual aluminum tube fender. Here you guys can see that there is quite a bit of stick out with these 35-1250s. We do end up going with a 35-1050. Now it's time to move the Jeep down to the lower shop and continue with fabrication. Here's the little mount we made for the ECM as well as both fuse blocks.
So the factory dash in this, or instrument panel I should say, mounts to all of these holes and runs flat all the way across. And so we are going to build, we'll plasma out a custom insert for all of the nice aftermarket gauges, which I'll show you guys next. So for the gauges, we decided that we're going to fabricate and design and fabricate a new basic instrument cluster in there, and the foundation of the gauges came from Autometer, and it is their Envision series digital dash. So as you can see, like that digital dash will take up almost all of where the existing instrument cluster and instrumentation came through. But that's going to make for really, really clean, accurate instrumentation. And then below the dash, where you've got one of those extra gauges and looks like a push button switch, is where the AC controls will come out. So this rig is a NV4500 and Atlas transfer case. And because of that, the original transmission tunnel won't work. So again, we went back to the drawing board and cut out a new panel on the CNC plasma. Here's the new tranny tunnel. We're running, like I said, the Atlas transfer case, and these are actually cable shifters. So this is a passenger drop transfer case, and so our shifter cables come out, wrap around, and then come right into these. So these will be easy access, and then obviously the NV4500 will just come up and be kind of your standard normal shifter. So got that all fabricated. So what is next on the agenda? We have to figure out a throttle pedal mount. So we'll have to do some design and some fabrication stuff for that. We also built a custom exhaust, which I have another video kind of outlining how that custom exhaust was fabricated. So hopefully you guys will check that out. And then we need to figure out some shock towers. So this is kind of what I'm thinking we're gonna go with. These towers came from Ruff Stuff. So we will have to trim our inner fender to make those work. And then hopefully we can get through all of the rest of the fabrication on this stuff and mock-up and send it off to sandblast. Now, sandblast, we've already uncovered some not so good stuff here. We got some rust holes there in the rocker panel, and you can see they didn't, when they painted it the last time, they didn't take off those rocker guards. And then we pulled off the diamond plate corner guards and uncovered a multitude of sins. Here you can see just the really poor body work. So we're gonna have quite a bit of sheet metal work to do in the rear of this rig to get that sorted out.
So instead of spending a whole ton of time and money trying to recreate those pieces, we went to Motobuilt and bought their rear corner guards. These are heavy duty 3/16 plate that's got that nice bend that matched that radius perfectly. So we trimmed those up. And then one request Jill Stebna had was it had to have a bench seat. Here we mocked up the brake booster, got that from Summit, and then marked out the firewall with all of the holes we needed to fill, as well as the inner fender wells. Now we're on to disassembling the chassis, and we found some cracks, some pretty significant cracks in the frame itself. So we identified all of those items and welded them up the best that we could, putting reinforcement plates in all of the necessary spots, but boy, it was a little rough. So after we got everything welded up, we completely stripped it down and sent it off to powder coat. While the chassis was at powder coat, we tore into the 5.3 liter. This came from a 2012 Silverado. We disassembled everything, sent the necessary parts and pieces off to the machine shop, and prepped it for paint. Went with the factory Cummins Beige. We like to color match our engines. And then, while that was getting assembled, we got everything back from the sandblaster and we uncovered even more issues with the body. Lots of rust and previous repairs that needed to be addressed and improved. Several of them were on the windshield pillar right there. That's the driver's side front corner. This is the lower rocker panel. And that is actually the door jamb. So quite a bit of rust in this rig that was not apparent when it was all assembled. This is the passenger side windshield frame, right where the hinge mounts. So after we got that rust taken care of, we went right into bodywork. We didn't go crazy trying to make this thing perfectly straight, but we did try to smooth out all of our welded patch panels, smooth out the firewall quite a bit, and then make the sides as nice as we can. Sealed everything up with some epoxy primer. And then we used the Raptor liner tintable spray-on bed liner. This stuff works really, really well. We tinted it with the actual Jamaican Beige so that it looks exactly like body color and gives us a really, really nice texture. Here's a kind of a zoom in of the finished product. Came out very shiny, looks good. Flipped the Jeep tub back on its normal configuration and then sealed everything up with epoxy primer on the exterior and in the body tub. This is the seam sealer. We applied seam sealer all throughout the body tub. That's the black stuff. We like to use a 2-part seam sealer. And then repeated the process again using the Raptor liner tinted for the body tub. This turned out really, really well. Then we moved on to wet sanding the exterior of the body and went right into the base coat clear coat for the Jamaican Beige. Firewall is nice and smooth, and everything is looking really, really good. While we were doing body work and paint, the chassis came back from the powder coater, and we went directly into assembling that beautiful engine and transmission, getting that set into that nicely black powder coated chassis. Boy, it's really starting to come together now, like all of that contrasting black with the tan. This is where I get really excited.
Well, here it is, the moment of truth where the body becomes one with the chassis. So let's go through kind of chassis assembly. First things first, all of this yellow tape is because we sprayed the cavity coat inside the frame rails and we didn't want it bleeding out all over the place. So some of the assembly that we accomplished ahead of time, we have the brake proportioning valve hooked up to the stainless steel replacement line kit. Not sure that we're gonna have enough clearance for that to stay there with the exhaust, but for now we're gonna test fit it. Obviously you got the Atlas transfer case, NV4500, all married up to the 5.3 liter. That's in place. Our exhaust 2 into 1 exhaust is all installed. as well as the other rear stainless steel brake line. We went with the body lift style cab and body mounts, as well as the in-tank fuel injection pump. So all of this is plumbed, and plumbing will come out around here right next to this body lift, and then we will mount the regulator either in here or down here, and then hard line it all the way up, and then come up on the bell housing away from all of the hot exhaust into the back of the intake manifold right there. So next, we're going to take this, use the existing roll cage, lift up that body, and set it in place.
Now it's time to get the rest of the Jamaican Beige parts painted and put on the Jeep. Here's all the tube fenders. And we had the side guards powder coated black. Those look good. And boy, the Jeep is really starting to look complete now. Routed all of the heater hoses. Mounted the air conditioning evaporator unit. The electric fan and radiator from Cold Case. The AC condenser from Old Air Products, as well as the line kit. Put in the front windshield. Now it was time to get our instrumentation and our gauge cluster all fabricated. So we designed this panel with those switches on the left. There's 9 positions, and we sent that file over to the CNC plasma table. Now that we had our switch panel fabricated, we need to fill it up with switches. So we mounted this toolbox behind that front bulkhead. And inside the toolbox, we installed the air compressor, as well as the air tank and the locker solenoids. Now it's time to actually install the wheels and tires. These are a 35-10-50. Joe Steadman, he likes the tall skinny. And it's nice because they don't stick out as much as the 1250s. Still continuing on with fabrication. It's like the fabrication never ends. Here's our swing out. The hinge came from 4x Innovations. Plasmaed out some gussets for the actual tire mount. Got all of that stuff assembled, welded out. Added a receiver hitch on the bottom there. And then we moved on to rocker skids / running boards. These are a DIY kit from Ruff Stuff, and we sourced the tube locally to save some money on shipping. And we basically put these outriggers on them so that they would bolt on and not weld on. More details on those are next in the next video. Here's the top. We coated the top with Raptor liner, just went with kind of a semi-gloss black. And then got all of those parts and pieces for the tire carrier and rocker skids back from the powder coater and got all of those installed and assembled. And boy, the Jeep is really getting close to complete. There it is with the spare tire on it. And we moved on to interior, went with a rubber mat. and then had B&R Upholstery produce some door panels, and then changed those Cadillac Eldorado seats with some custom inserts, fabricated some custom bracketry to bolt to the floor, and then we got the thing running until it decided it was going to blow out the redhead steering box. Wah, wah, wah. So we sent that redhead steering box back to them. They covered it under warranty, no issues, and we've had no problems with the steering ever since. That's going to do it for this video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss the notification when video number 3 of this build series comes out. Thanks for watching.